Hello, everybody. I'm a Mayo Clinic scientist, and I have a DNA consulting company called AJ Consulting Company. Also an author, and I have a YouTube channel that's pretty fun, Anthony J Cast. A lot of scientific content on there. And then I've got Anthony J Family Cast, which is adventures with my family. Today's episode is with Dan from Minnesota. I really enjoyed talking to Dan. Dan is particularly knowledgeable and disciplined in the keto diet. So I put his episode next to last week's episode because they're both focusing on keto. You can certainly do your own DNA consult with AJ Consulting Company. You can do it as a podcast or confidentially, ajconsultingcompany.com. Either way, I hope you enjoy today's episode. Dan, Dr. J. Yeah, doing great. How are you? And you got the recording device and everything? Oh, sure. On the side of the device, there's an on button.
You said it's got tons of hours on it, right?
Oh yeah, it'll go all day.
All right, it is on and recording.
Good, thanks. All right. Yeah, I actually have a different recording device, so I don't know the buttons off the top of my head, but yeah, that one's super simple, right?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
And you got the PDF I sent you.
I did.
Good, perfect. So yeah, we'll go through that, of course. And you're in Minnesota?
Yep, I'm in Minnesota. You are too, correct?
Oh yeah, Rochester. And were you the one that said you had missed my talk in the Twin Cities, or
no? That's where I saw your talk. So I bought your
cool.
book, Estrogeneration,
Yeah,
and then
thanks.
I saw you give the presentation at I think it was the Makers Corner or Creators Corner or something like that in St. Paul. Cool little place.
Thanks for coming. I had somebody else who wanted to go to that talk is actually upcoming for a podcast, also from Minnesota. So it's good, all kinds of Minnesota representation.
Right.
And then you're a big keto fan, obviously, according to your email.
Yeah, so I meant to send you, I just sent it today. I apologize for sending it too late. It's probably not useful to you at this point, but I meant to send the blood panel earlier because, about 15 months ago, I decided to try keto just as a New Year's resolution for 2019 and thought I'd try it for a week or two. And 15 months later, it's like, wow, I'm never going to change from eating healthy whole foods and, kind of carnivore heavy, but I wouldn't say totally because I love veggies too much.
Right. No, that's good. I mean, we'll definitely talk about some of those genes too. It's really interesting. But yeah, I hear that so often. And it's funny because people, they say, well, I like my life too much. I want to eat good food because I like my life. And it's like, well, if you give up that quote-unquote good food, the stuff that's super tasty, like the donuts and all that stuff, just give it up for a few months, and then you realize how much better your life is, how much better you feel.
I know, and you can't convey to people, because you do the same thing, right? You're a healthy whole food, mostly keto.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so once you get to a point where your inflammation is gone, and it's more retrospective, once you look back and realize, oh my God, I used to wake up every night during the night because my shoulders were sore, my rotators hurt all the time. That was inflammation. My knees always tweaked when I ran or walked because they were inflamed. Now that they aren't, I can't.
It's amazing.
I can't express to people how once you feel so much better in retrospect, you don't miss the IPAs, you don't miss the croissants and the donuts and the garbage. They still taste good if I have a bite of something. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. That's good. But Jesus, I am not going to eat a bunch of that every day.
Right.
Man.
Well, and the other thing is you lose some of the taste for it. You realize how much junk it is when you taste it after you've been off of it.
Right.
Then your body kind of recognizes it as just a bunch of chemicals.
Yep. And that's the thing. You look at food. You start to look at food first as fuel, and then as fun. So I still like to go out to a gourmet restaurant and have gourmet food. But what intrigues me now is when they're using real ingredients.
Right, a good restaurant.
Cooking an animal in a new and unique way, something I've never tried before. That's going to really appeal to me. Having some bone marrow dish or having some, some tripe or something that would have grossed me out years ago. And now I'm thinking, wow, that's really cool. That's like nose to tail, and they're coming up with some creative gourmet way of presenting this meal, and it's all healthy, wholesome, fatty, whatever. Really good.
Yep. Yeah, I appreciate that. So obviously what we'll do with the DNA is just go down the line on that PDF.
Okay.
So it helps if that's handy. And then because you have a lot of genes here, of course, everybody does. We'll be focusing on the plus plus genes because, as you'll see, there's plus plus and plus minus genes on this report.
Yep.
Right, like the first one is plus plus CETP, and plus plus means you got a bad version of that gene from your mother and a bad version of that gene from your father. Generally, it's not 100% of the time. Sometimes I do actually have plus pluses that indicate good genes on this report because, like, for example, if you have a muscle fiber type for sprinting, like fast twitch muscle fibers, that's not bad, right?
Right.
You might have like a plus plus for sprinting, or even a plus plus for endurance muscles, like slow twitch muscles. Also not a bad thing.
Okay.
So, but generally, I'm focused on bad genes because I'm not interested in your good genes. You know what I mean? There's thousands of good genes that you have. I only want to find the bad ones and then figure out how to fix them.
Right.
So that's the main focus.
And by fix, you're not really meaning to fix the genes. You're meaning to have a lifestyle that keeps those genes from necessarily realizing their negative potential.
Sure, good point. Yeah. And sometimes it is a fix. Like the BDNF gene, that you make less BDNF.
Okay.
That's what the plus plus indicates. And you can fix it just by increasing your endurance exercise because endurance exercise increases BDNF production. So you literally fix that gene.
Got it.
You know what I mean? Your body makes less. So if you do things that are in concert with what your genetics want you to do, then you'll make more, and probably more than the average person. Not just less than the average person, but not even just the same amount as somebody else, but actually more. And I noticed you're doing 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups several times weekly.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. Do you do that like in a single day?
Yeah, so like what I'll do, and I'll be honest with you, since this whole COVID lockdown, what it's made me realize is maybe I thought I was already on a very compressed workout routine. I'd gotten down to one 15-minute machine workout a week. Sundays I'd go to Lifetime, and I would do, I'd stack, my goal was to get the pin to the bottom of everything that I did and just do a 15-minute routine where I could stack the flies, stack the leg press, stack the stomach, stack whatever, and just really mentally press so that I was pushing myself to, my maximum exertion, and it was only 15 to 20 minutes once a week. But and that seemed to do good for me. But then I found now that I haven't been able to do that, I'm actually feeling better, I'm less sore, and I can do more pull-ups and push-ups than I ever could before. And I feel like, and I measure my muscle, my body fat every day on a Withings, and I've done a DEXA twice, August and December, and so I have kind of a correlation of the DEXA scan, which is more accurate, to my Withings, which is at least something I can do every day. And so my Withings will show me as a 8 to 9% body fat. The DEXA, I was at 13 and then 12, so now, so it's going in the right direction. So my goal is to just continue to melt the visceral fat, and I feel like I'm doing that by just walking every day and doing my couple of times a week extreme, because I'll do a set of 30 pull-ups, side grip, and then I'll do 20 pull-ups with chin-up style, and I'll mix it with 80 push-ups and then 60 push-ups and then another 60 push-ups, and then until I have 100 pull-ups and a couple hundred push-ups, and then I'll call it a day. And then I may not do it again until 3 or 4 days later. And I'm just doing that once or twice a week. And anyway, I feel better, I'm not sore, and I don't feel like I've lost muscle mass. If anything, I maybe am staying on track, maybe even still losing a teeny bit of fat.
Sure. Yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, the only problem I see with that in the long term is you want to do some rowing,
Okay.
Like just to pull your shoulders back, because if you're constantly doing push-ups, those shoulder muscles tighten up.
And you don't think that the pull-ups with different grips are counteractive enough? Rowing would be...
No, because it's vertical. So like overhead press and pull-ups would be like push-pull in the vertical direction.
Got it.
But like a push-pull in the horizontal direction would be bench press and row.
Okay.
And you're basically doing the bench press motion with the push-up.
Got it.
And what some guys do, if you want to keep it at body weight, you know what a squat rack is, right? Like a safety rack?
Yeah.
If you have the bar really low on a squat rack, for example, and you'd lay on the floor, and then you'd pull your body up to it, like basically you're rowing, but you're laying on the floor and you're pulling up on the bar, and you're just pulling it up to your chest. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah,
just
yeah. No, I can visualize that. So.
Yeah, and you don't have to have a squat rack. I'm just using that as an example. You could literally do that with a bedpost or something if you can figure out something that you can get underneath and pull yourself up on. Pull up and then slide down slowly. Pull up, slide down slow.
Right.
So then you get the eccentric and concentric movements.
Right.
Just to balance out your shoulders, because again, I think what you're doing is in line with your genetics. I mean, you probably noticed in the gym section that you're more of an endurance guy. In terms of, well, I mean, if you want, let's actually jump way down there quick, and then we'll go back to the top.
Okay.
Since we're talking about it, there's a section on page 13. It's called Gym Genes.
Okay, let me go to that.
And at the very top of that page, it tells you your muscle fiber type, but also you have this other gene called BDKRB2, bradykinin receptor number 2, B2. And it's a fairly rare gene. It's not found that commonly, but it's super common in extreme endurance athletes like Olympic runners.
Okay.
And it gives you an advantage in terms of exercise. It helps with blood flow. It helps, it's involved in feelings of pain. So you have like a decreased pain sensitivity, or you have better pain tolerance.
So let me ask you this: would it explain, like years ago, my wife always had a dream of running a marathon. And I kind of always chuckled and said, humans weren't really meant to run marathons. I think it was kind of, I always thought it would be destructive to knees and joints and overall long-term health.
Sure.
So I kind of never thought of it. But then when I was 39, I thought, her goal was always to run a marathon before she was 40. I'm like, yeah, you know what? I just got my knee operated on, a little ortho, and it really feels great. I think I'd like to try a marathon just for the heck of it. So I signed up for Grandma's marathon in January, and I ran it in June. And when I was starting to train for it, I realized I wasn't a runner. So I still wanted to run it, but I just didn't like running. And somebody told me, if you can run 5 miles, you can run a marathon. Just run slow, or just pace yourself. So I took it to heart, and I never ran more than, I think once I ran 10 miles, forget that. I'm going to save it for race day. So I ran Grandma's, and I didn't run it fast. I ran it in 4:29. But I finished it, and I was fine. I mean, I was sore and everything, but would that gene have been an advantage in that situation?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Well, what's Grandma's, first of all? Is that like a marathon?
No.
Is that like a Minnesota marathon?
Yeah, Grandma's up in Duluth. That's one of the famous ones.
Cool.
Yeah, Grandma's.
It's famous, of course, yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know. I've never done a marathon. It sounds awesome. It sounds like a party.
It was a party, and that turns out that's what marathons are. They're parties, you just don't even notice the time going by. But I kind of wondered if that was, should I have been a runner? Or I never ran another one. I just got it over with and did my one.
Well, the problem with most people that try and become runners is they overdo it. And you're right, it is damaging on their body. The way to really do it, in my opinion, is to train up really, really slow and over a long period of time. My favorite way to describe it is basically use nose breathing. And so, if you go sprinting, you have to open your mouth to breathe.
Right.
You can try it and you'll see really quick you got to open your mouth. But the pace that I like is basically just nose breathe up until you almost have to open your mouth to breathe. And if you have to open your mouth, back down the pace a little bit and just do that for an hour.
Okay.
And that might even be a fast walk initially for a few months. It might be a super slow jog, but eventually it'll be a faster jog, and then eventually it might even be a run. And you can maintain that pace forever. I know guys that do 100-mile races and things.
Right.
And that's basically the pace they're doing, and they're not having any cardiac damage. They're not damaging their heart. Whereas a lot of marathon runners damage their heart with the troponin I. You can measure it in their blood.
Okay.
And that's exactly because of them not training enough, and then they go out and just go crazy on the course, right? They just go full bore.
Right.
And not good in the long term for your heart. You get some scar tissue and stuff like that. It depends on the person, of course. And like you said, you're definitely more adapted for that just with your genetics. So anyways, let's jump back to the top. Sorry to just jump way ahead, but just really interesting that's in the, kind of lines up with what you've experienced, I think. Particularly, like I say, with that BDNF gene, because BDNF is considered, they call that miracle grow for the brain. It's like peptide.
Okay.
And have you ever seen those old Miracle Grow commercials where they have like a plant without the fertilizer and then a plant with the fertilizer?
Yeah, definitely.
And the plant with the fertilizer just explodes with new shoots and leaves and things like that.
Yep.
And that's what happens with BDNF. If you put BDNF on a bunch of brain cells in a dish, they just explode with new growth, new shoots and branches and that sort of thing. And endurance exercise really bumps up your BDNF. So it's beneficial for your brain. That's the point.
Okay.
And the CETP, that first gene on there, just so I don't gloss over that one. And again, generally, I'll just focus on the plus pluses. I'm going to skip the plus minuses for the most part, just because, there's little paragraphs you can read. Again, the plus minus means you have a good copy of a gene and a bad copy.
Right.
So the good copy, aka the minus, that can override the bad copy in some situations, so it's not as big of an issue.
Okay.
But that first gene, plus CETP, that's a cholesterol ester transfer protein. Basically, make sure your triglycerides are good. And I'm sure they are with all your exercising.
Well, that's I mentioned to you when I sent you my blood panel, in a lot of respects.
It's one of those ones that creeps up.
Yeah, I don't get it. I mean, I don't eat any sugar. I really don't eat any processed foods or carbs. I'm keto for the last 16 months, solid every day, never out of keto. And
what's the number? Like, what's the value?
So they vary from 112 to 149. So
that's good.
Yeah, they're in the green. But I read about these hyper responders, which in a lot of ways I kind of see myself as a lean mass hyper responder for my age, except for my triglycerides. They tend to be higher than what I read about other people.
Right. Well, it's probably just more endurance. Like, maybe instead of doing it a few times a week, I know you say you're walking daily, right? So yeah, you're probably doing. I mean, I'd maybe just bump that up to a slow jog or something, get more blood flow going.
Okay.
And I mean, you're right on the border, right? You're definitely not 500. I talk to people that are 500.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And those are the same people that get Alzheimer's. So if you're right on the edge, like of 125 and below, that's really good. That's not a big deal, particularly if you're keto. So
right. And
because when you're keto, you're
insulin is super low, CRP is super low. I mean, C-peptide is super low. All those other markers are super low. Lipo(a) is super low. It's just
right. Well, and we'll talk about that in the heart disease section for sure.
Okay.
But because your brain does pretty well with carbs, as you can see with that FOXO3 gene.
So that's
that's like a lifespan extension gene. Yeah, that's a good gene.
Oh, okay. So that's cool.
Yeah, that's a coveted lifespan extension gene. A lot of scientists talk about that gene as being like the most important gene for lifespan.
Wow.
For extended lifespan. Yeah, but mostly it's because everybody in America eats so many carbs. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
But this just allows you to get away with a little bit more in terms of your brain. Doesn't mean they're great for you, particularly because you have some heart disease risk genes that we're going to talk about.
Right.
If you're on the high carb.
Yep.
But it's a good one. And then the melancholy gene, I'm not so worried about unless you have issues there.
No, but I wonder if that explains. I've always had a tendency to kind of go toward that, on the spectrum of just emotional spectrum. I kind of tend to take the negative side of how people might be thinking about me, even though logically I know they're not, but the feeling might still be toward that sort of melancholy side. I wonder if that's
you got it. Yep. That's pretty common, and in the gut. Because 90% of your serotonin is made in your gut, that's a serotonin gene. So usually just having a healthy gut is one of the most important aspects to having a healthy outlook on life,
Yep.
In that regard. And if it's more problematic than that, then you can kind of dig into that paragraph.
Well, and what I would say is since going ketogenic and low carb and everything, it's been so much better. I can just tell you that
exactly.
Mood is 100% more stable. Not that I don't act different. I always controlled it, but the feelings are just more stable, notably.
Right. I'm not surprised. Yeah. And then the caffeine, you burn really quick, so that shouldn't be an issue, right?
Right.
I mean, you're probably one of those guys who can drink coffee and go to sleep.
I've always said that. I mean, I've eliminated it a few times just because I'll think, well, maybe that'll get my triglycerides down if I get rid of coffee. So I'll get rid of it for a month, and it's like a headache for a day or two, and then it's fine. And then after a month, my triglycerides are still kind of in that same sort of mediocre place, fine, but not fantastic. And I'm like, well, shit, I'm going to drink coffee if that's not having a big impact, because I do love it, and it does not seem to impact my sleep.
Yeah, the best supplement I think for triglycerides is DHA, like fish oil.
I eat so much fish oil. When you look at if you look at my
Okay.
blood markers, you'll see I started adding that on the last test. So now I do my
Okay, good.
omega-3s as
Right.
well. And my numbers are so high, they're red. But they don't really,
Sure.
they don't say it's bad. It's just they're red because they're above the reference
Right.
range. And my
Right.
omega-6s are super low. So I am predominantly, EPA, DHA, all omega-3, and it's super high. And I eat a ton of mackerel and cod liver and
Good.
fish in
Right.
general.
Yep, good. I mean, so yeah, you're doing that already. Yeah, I wouldn't worry then in that case. I mean, like you said correctly, if you're on keto, your triglycerides tend to be a little higher anyway, because triglycerides just means 3 fatty acids that are linked together. That's why it's called tri. And then there's a glycerol backbone, so it's glycerol, and then so triglyceride, 3 fatty acids. It could be 3 palmitic acids. It could be 3, myristic acids. It could be 3, whatever, right? Like 3 DHAs linked together. Doca hexanoic. I mean, so DHA is doca hexanoic acid or something like that. It's another fatty acid. So when you're eating a ton of fat, you have to transport that fat around your body, and triglyceride is a form of that transport. So of course it's going to be a little bit higher, but it doesn't sound like it's outrageous. I wouldn't worry too much about it. Unless, of course, you get above that 150 mark,
Right. Which I was when I was a low-fat person. My LDL was low and good, but then my HDL was also low, which was not good. My vitamin D was low, and my triglycerides were low. But that was
and you felt like crap.
I felt like crap.
Or you didn't feel as good, at least.
No,
right?
I felt like crap. You're right. I woke up every night with sore. My shoulders ached, my knees ached. I was not good.
Right.
So.
Well, and then the last gene in this brain section is the MYNN. And again, it's a plus minus. So, I mean, basically just make sure you get zinc, plenty of zinc. You're eating meat. I'm not worried about this one. But because people are always looking to extend their lifespans, it's just a good priority to make sure you're getting plenty of zinc. Zinc, it's really critical for this gene. This gene depends on zinc to extend your telomeres. That's what it does. It's called myoneurin.
Okay.
And shorter telomeres means shorter lifespan, effectively. Like shorter telomeres.
Do you recommend?
Less lifespan.
Do you recommend doing telomere tests? I mean, I haven't added that, but I've always been curious about it.
Yeah, I do. I do like the tests. People complain about them because if you take them on Monday and then you take it again on Friday or whatever, it does change. But it's not substantial. It's not like you go from, like your biological age in your case is what, 50, 57?
57, yeah.
Yep. So, or I guess that's your
chronological age.
Chronological, excuse me, thank you. So then your biological, it's not going to go from like 65 and then down to 35 in the same week. You know what I mean? It doesn't swing that much. It might be like, it might say that you're 57 and then a couple days later it might say you're 58 and then a few days later it might say you're 56 or something. That's perfectly acceptable. But people complain about that. People take issue with that.
Right.
But that's just lab tests. Lab tests have an inherent amount of error. And those telomeres change a little bit,
Right.
But you're not going to, but if you come back and your chronological age is 57 and you do a telomere test and it says you're 37, that's exceptional no matter what.
Right.
You know what I mean? So from that standpoint, it's valuable, and you can definitely track benefits over time. I mean, it's not a major priority though. So, anyways,
and would you say that telomere enhancement or protection is more affected by your exercise or by your diet? I know it'd be both probably, but what is more emphasis on?
Probably diet.
Okay.
Yep. Or at least in your case, it does depend on the genes though, right? Because like you've got this gene that's very zinc dependent. Some people have other genes that are more dependent on hormone levels or something else that might be influenced by exercise. You know what I mean? It could be kind of nuanced.
Okay.
But generally, diet's more important. Yeah.
Well, and it sounds like based on the overall report, I kind of glossed through it this afternoon after I received it, and I thought, thank God I've been eating so much meat because I went decades without eating much meat. My wife doesn't eat red meat, and so she doesn't cook it and really wasn't around. But in the last year, I've gone hog wild now on good grass-fed, pastured, red
Good.
meat, eggs every day,
Right.
and all
Right.
that good stuff. And it sounds like I, in particular, am really sensitive to getting a lot of nutrients that are in red meat.
Exactly. Yeah, you had a couple of pluses on your B12 genes, right? And B12 is huge in meat.
Right.
You had that retinol gene. Yeah, you're 100%. And even the next gene that's on the lineup here, we're switching sections to the diet section.
Okay.
And you see that gene SLC30A8?
Yes.
That's another one that's heavily dependent on zinc. It's a zinc transporter that helps your body clear blood sugar. And the version that you've got is plus, right? Meaning it's not as good at clearing blood sugar. So you want to make sure you get plenty of zinc. It helps your body manage blood sugar.
Okay.
And red meat, of course, being the best source of zinc. Pretty much,
Is there any downside to supplementation of zinc when I eat as much meat as I do?
No. I mean, it just might cost money that you don't necessarily need to spend.
Okay.
But I've seen so many people have amazing telomere results when they have more zinc, so it never hurts. I think it's worth it.
And as a chemist, do you recommend any particular compound of zinc, any brand versus other?
Oh, sure. Well, that's why I sent you that link from my website,
AJ
Consulting Company.
Okay, yep.
Because I do actually. Yeah, the version I like, it's called zinc carnosine. And only because it gives you less acid reflux feeling. It doesn't literally give you acid reflux if you take zinc, but some people feel like they have acid reflux. It's just unpleasant, they're giving them stomach aches.
Okay.
And carnosine protects against that, so that's pretty much it. Beyond that, you could go with anything. And yeah, these intermittent fasting genes. I mean, do you do any intermittent fasting?
Yep, I embraced intermittent fasting and restricted windows, so I'm generally a 16/8. Sometimes I'm just an OMAD, and it's become. I can't believe how effective it has been in terms of just feeling good. It's not about weight loss or anything. I'm at a good weight, good muscle mass and all. But just eating once or twice a day with no snacks, there's no stomach aches anymore. I used to have a lot of stomach aches all through my life. I had a lot of stomach aches, a lot of bloating and gas from different foods. And that's just all gone. And that's another thing that it's just hard to impress on people who might also have that and not talk about it. How nice life is when you don't have gas or stomach aches or bloating when you've had it your whole life, and you thought that was normal. You just thought it was normal. If I have pasta, spaghetti, it's delicious, but I know I'm going to have
super full.
Yeah, I'm going to have a gut ache until the gas is gone. That's just not there anymore.
Exactly. Yeah, you got it. So I mean, intermittent fasting, massively important. Heart palpitations, do you ever get those?
I haven't had those, but I did have a TIA in 2000, so 2002, so like 18 years ago. And they didn't know what it was, so we think in retrospect it was maybe a migraine aura. So I think I maybe had migraine auras once in a while, and that was the doozy. Felt like a stroke, seemed like a stroke, but there was no damage, no stroke found, so they diagnosed it as a transient ischemic attack. So I was wondered about that.
Interesting, yeah. Well, I mean, it certainly wouldn't have helped you if you weren't eating meat or eating a lot of meat, because of course creatine comes up here. This gene regulates creatine kinase, so creatine is particularly important here. In fact, when I was at the Mayo Clinic today, and I do a lot of heart research with rats. I actually take out their hearts and grow them in dishes and do manipulations on them. And when we do that, we use creatine and we include taurine.
Okay. And I do take 5 grams, a teaspoon a day
of creatine.
Yep. And I just add that to my bullet coffee in the morning.
Right. So that's great. Yeah. I mean, and again, as long as you're eating meat, you're getting plenty of creatine too. You still bump up your levels if you take it. So I'm glad that you're taking it, particularly with this gene. I think you should.
Okay. Good.
And the next gene, so I've hustled a little bit on a couple of these genes, but this heart disease section, so if I had to guess, I'd say heart disease probably runs in your family, right?
Yep, my dad had several heart attacks, strokes, grandpa he died of a stroke, and I do have a calcium score. I got a calcium test last year as part of the baseline for going keto, And it's a low score, 1.2, but it's a score. And I know it takes decades to build calcium, so that means for a long time, while I was living a supposedly healthy, whole grain, low fat life, I was putting stress on my heart, probably somewhat because of these genes.
Exactly. Yeah, and thankfully you have good iron genes, because this next gene, it's called SOD2, superoxide dismutase, SOD2, and it's not even a heart disease risk if your iron is good. So that's the key.
Okay.
And you may have your iron information, but if your iron is high, your blood, like your ferritin, then you have a 10-fold higher risk of heart disease. Right. Which is super high.
And my ferritin is low, so that's, you're saying, a good thing. Me.
Yep. In your case, yeah. I mean, you don't want to be below the range low, but so maybe bump it up with a little liver or something, but you definitely don't want to be high. You don't even want to be on the higher end of the normal,
Right.
But then it's not just that gene, so that's good. I'm super glad to hear that. But it's not just that gene, because the LPL gene is another one, right? And that's another one related to triglycerides, so I'm less worried about that one because your triglycerides sound really good.
Well, they're not below 125, so I'm still on the...
Yeah, but that's a really tight... Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's a really strict optimized level I'm giving you there.
Okay.
And I'm considering that you're on keto, so I would probably make that 150 for you.
Okay, cool.
I wouldn't get too hypochondriac about hitting that 125.
All right.
But I would get hypochondriac if you start getting above 150.
All right.
Maybe not hypochondriac, but you know what I mean. But yeah, I mean, it's if you said you gave me a few numbers earlier.
Right. In my triglycerides, before I was keto, over the years, my triglycerides ranged from under 100 when I was doing a G-BOMS diet. I was more vegan. So vegan did really drop my triglycerides.
Oh yeah.
But it also dropped my LDL, and I still felt like crap. So it wasn't a good thing.
That's pretty common. No, I'm glad you said that, because that's common.
And on a standard American diet, it was as high as 280. So I know that my triglycerides have been pretty high.
Right. Yeah, vegan is a good lever to pull if you're at 500 on your triglycerides or whatever, and you just absolutely have to get them down. It's emergency, nothing else works, that sort of thing.
It took 30 days. I mean, that's how quick it was when I went from standard American to just doing a G-BOMS vegan diet, and it dropped like a rock.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good for people to know that, but that doesn't mean it's sustainable long-term or healthy.
Right. Yep.
But the next gene, CTH, is a homocysteine gene, so you might want to keep tabs on your homocysteine on future blood tests.
Okay.
Just make sure that form of inflammation is not high. If it is high, supplement serine, because this gene, cystathionine gamma-lyase, it's called CTH. This one often leads to higher levels of homocysteine because it helps your body break down homocysteine by attaching it to a serine.
Okay.
So a lot of complicated terminology there, but basically homocysteine, marker for inflammation. Your body doesn't clear it as well as it should. And serine, which is just an amino acid, it's kind of like protein powder.
Yep.
That helps to clear homocysteine for you specifically. So, if it's high, you've got a solution there. But the last gene on here in the heart disease section, or at least the last one on this page, it's called APC. This one's really rare, and this one's probably even more predictive of heart disease than most because it's related to carbs. And as you know, everybody in America is eating lots of carbs, and so this is why I'm most happy that you're keto of all your genes.
So would you say, I mean, not that we can ever know because they're both dead, and I didn't know either one well, but my grandpa and my father, because they both had heart attacks and strokes, in the fact that they probably ate, and they were probably both alcoholic and cigarette smokers and all that, and this gene, I mean, is that kind of like, boy, their fates were sealed?
Yeah, absolutely. And alcohol increases iron in your blood, by the way, and things like that, so who knows, it might have been some iron stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, carbs almost certainly, because, one of the reasons this gene comes up as a high risk of heart disease, APC it's called, is because when they do studies, they're pooling average Americans, right? They're using average Americans in these scientific studies, and average Americans eat loads of carbs, so then of course, when they have this gene, it's super high risk. And it's a gene that basically is involved in cell adhesion or stickiness on your cells. So high carb diets, you know what hemoglobin A1C is, right?
Yes.
A1C.
Yep.
I mean, it's basically a measure of your stickiness of your blood cells, of your hemoglobin.
Okay.
And that's why it's a long-term measure of blood sugar, because if you have higher blood sugar, your blood cells get stickier. They get more sugar stuck on them.
Right.
In your case, that's really problematic, for plaques and things like that. And curcumin can help kind of thin your blood a little bit, but at the end of the day, just avoid high carb diets. You're doing that.
I should mention, you say consider supplementing curcumin or grapeseed extract. I have been supplementing grapeseed for 30 years.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm glad you have, because this gene, it's kind of like, yeah, maybe not, but then the next page at the very top of the gene, or at the very top of the next page, there's that heart disease section with flavonoids, and you light up like a Christmas tree there, right?
Right.
And it's just like plus. So you got 4 pluses. They're all related to the CDK gene, which is another form of inflammation that can damage your arteries.
Okay.
And the way I always describe it is like a hot water tap. Like basically if you turn your hot water on too high, this gene helps to shut that hot water off. That form of inflammation gets decreased here.
Okay.
But you've got pluses all over this gene, so you don't turn that hot water down as well as you should. That you don't shut off that inflammation as well as you should.
Right.
But grapeseed extract, that inhibits CDK inflammation. That shuts off this form of inflammation. So it's like a massively important supplement in your case.
And I didn't take it for that either. I think I just took it as a general antioxidant without any specific reason. And what I found is that after about 5 or 6 years of taking it, I noticed my allergies, my seasonal spring and fall allergies, were reduced. And I didn't know why.
Yeah.
And at some point I was doing research, and I noticed an article that said that subdued your histamine response. And I thought, wow, maybe that is helping me with my allergies. So I just kept taking it, and probably saved myself, because in spite of the high carb diet over the years, maybe that was helping to balance it a little bit.
Right. Yeah, 100%. I mean, it never hurts to decrease inflammation in your arteries, and I would keep taking that for sure. That's probably the most important supplement you can take, because at the end of the day, most of these other things you can get from your diet, and you can get flavonoids from your diet, eating plants, but it's hard to get enough. You've probably heard about resveratrol.
Right.
And, that's another part of the grapeseed extract. And resveratrol, let me just see, pill versus red wine. I'm just going to check this fact, because I keep saying this and I don't know.
Well, and I got on the resveratrol bandwagon for a while, and maybe took resveratrol supplements for a year or so, and then over the years I've tried a lot of different supplements and healthy diets and healthy exercise and different things, but some of the mainstays have been the grapeseed extract with pine bark. It's been something for the last 30 years, and a general multivitamin, and everything else has kind of come and gone.
Sure, yeah. Well, what's funny about the resveratrol, the reason I bring it up is I can't remember the number, but it's like you need to drink, like 100 glasses of wine a day or something to get the same amount as a
right.
pill.
And that's why after taking it for a while, I kind of thought, it's probably not doing much.
Yeah. Well, no, the pills are. It's just the red wine isn't. So the average glass of red wine apparently has between 0.2 and 2 milligrams of resveratrol, but whereas a supplement has like 100 to 500.
Okay.
So yeah, it's about 100 glasses of red wine.
Right.
So I've been saying it correctly all these years. I just figured for a podcast that's recorded, I should actually know my facts.
Right.
But I mean, basically the point is you're not going to get it from your diet. You're not going to get that level from your diet or from red wine. So the supplement is really important. You're taking it, keep taking that one. That's probably the biggest priority you have. And then, of course, the C-reactive protein. I'm glad to hear that you already checked it. It's below 1, you say? I mean, you said it's good. Is it below 1?
Yeah, so my HSCRP is generally about 0.5, 0.4.
Good. Great.
Slipped on a mountain hike last summer, and I think I fractured my wrist. And it's interesting because I got my blood test as soon as we got back from Ireland, and I still had kind of a swollen purple wrist, and it was 1.0. And I thought, oh, look at that, my HSCRP is kind of high. And I thought,
Yep.
I'll bet it's because I'm healing from that fall.
Right. Yeah, for sure. 100%. And thankfully, it's good because you do have some genes that push it up. And as long as, I think taking that DHA is really helping the cause here as well. Because that lowers your CRP. But yeah, if it's good, it's good. And then the leaky gut section, of course, lights up quite a bit. I would say more than most people by far. You have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 genes in this section. Right?
Wow. So what are some of the symptoms that I would have experienced throughout my life because of my genetic disposition to this leaky gut? GI. I mean, is that...
Yeah,
does that
it's
account
exactly
for
what you already...
So the stomach aches, the gas.
Stomach ache stuff.
Okay.
Exactly. Some people, it's variable, right? Some people don't even feel anything until they get off the crappy foods, and then when they go back on them, then they say, "Oh, I see what's going on. Now I feel it." And for me, for example, I don't even feel it. If I go and eat a bunch of gluten, I'm pretty gluten sensitive, and if I go and eat a bunch of gluten, I don't really feel it. I mean, I feel exhausted, like I have to take a nap. So that's a symptom, but my gut feels fine. But if I get on a foam roller and roll my abs, it hurts like hell in there. Way deep in there.
Yeah.
And on a normal day, I can roll my abs and it feels fine.
See, and for me, it was just always normal to have a gut ache.
Right.
That was just normal.
Right.
I always assumed everybody had a gut ache after they ate a meal. That was just normal. And I knew it was worse after certain meals than others, but I just thought it was normal. If you have a pie that's made with Crisco or whatever, I just knew, boy, that's just must give people. Why do people eat this stuff, man? It tastes great, but it sure gives you a gut ache.
Yeah, you're definitely more sensitive. Mm-hmm. And I mean, the first gene right off the bat is one that's really responsive to keto. So keto is really beneficial for your gut lining. It's a gene that increases inflammasomes, which are as bad as they sound, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that inhibits inflammasomes is called butyric acid, which is and ketones. Butyric acid is found in butter. Your good gut bacteria create butyric acid, particularly if you're eating a lot of high-fat diet.
And I probably average a stick of Kerrygold grass-fed butter a day.
Right. Yeah, I do too when I do keto. Yeah, so that's really valuable. Have you heard of Dom DeAgostino?
Yeah,
keto researcher.
Yep, I've listened
He's
to
the one that yeah, exactly. He basically discovered that ketones inhibit inflammasomes. He's published research on that. So thankfully, that's a really big lever that you can pull. IBD5 is a plus. You see that one?
Yep.
That one, it's about... Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I love that you have mushrooms in here as a recommendation, because I probably should have bought stock in Four Sigmatic, because I have mushroom powder every day in my coffee. I mean, I start with it and I end with it. Even after I'm done drinking coffee for the day, I'll make a couple of green tea with a mix of reishi, or I've got 4 or 5 different kinds in the cupboard.
Yep. Yeah, that's super valuable for your gut, particularly when you have these genes. It's complicated, but it's related to a vitamin called ergothioneine that's found in mushrooms.
Okay.
But yeah, super important, as you can see. Glad you're taking it. And by the way, any kind of mushroom is good for ergothioneine. Like, you get that even if you're eating portobello mushrooms, things like that.
And with cooking, I do a total mix-up. I'll go with white mushrooms, portobellos, shiitake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all good. Yeah. Awesome. And then the last 2 genes that are plus in this section are the cannabis receptor, your cannabinoid receptor. It can be beneficial if you have a gut issue to use CBD. Have you ever tried CBD?
I have, and one of my holy grails is trying to get more deep sleep. So I wear an Oura ring. I have a Withings pad.
Good.
I have an EMC pad. I have a chili pad. I mean, I'm really on a quest for trying to optimize. And my sleep hygiene is extremely good. I get to bed usually by 10.
Dark.
I read keep the room fairly dark. You keep it dark, right? And then I'm wide awake by 5 in the morning, and I get up and I do my walk before anyone's up, so I can have a very efficient routine that doesn't infringe on the others in the family that aren't doing it. But when I look at my numbers, I have a lot of REM. I've always been great on REM, and I can get great sleep in 6.5 to 7 hours is my sweet spot. But it's hard for me to get more than 40 minutes of deep sleep. So I'm still looking. So I've tried CBD, different brands, different doses, different
real
times.
high dose. Okay.
Yeah. And I can't say that I kind of feel like it's like caffeine. I can drink coffee where other people get the jitters, and I'm like, it's not really, I can tell, but it's not really hitting me. So I don't know if it's psychosomatic, a little bit of relaxation, but I've never really felt it. Like, never really gotten a bang like you would from smoking marijuana, and I haven't done that in 35 years, but I can remember the effect that was extremely, there's no getting around the fact, yes, there's different effects from different strains of pot. I haven't felt that with CBD.
Right. Yeah, I mean, CBD, it definitely improves some people's sleep, but it's not super consistent in that sense. But it'll help your gut, like if you eat some stuff. I mean, what's interesting about your sleep genes, and I've, of course, looked at those, you have a gene that indicates you're more of a late night person.
and most of my life I was. My wife does not like the fact that I've become more about getting to bed
person?
Right, because she's like, you've always been a late person, and she's still late. She doesn't get to bed till midnight
or
1 or
she's
so.
Partying.
Yeah, not partying, but she's up late.
Just kidding. Yeah, I mean, I would, to be honest, have you tried staying up late?
Well, no,
and sleeping
because
in later. I do the same amount of sleep, but do the 7 hour. Just do it as a shift the time period a little bit later.
I guess I could, but the thing is I wake up so early. No matter what time I go to bed, and I have gotten to bed late. So no matter what time I go to bed, if I go to bed at midnight, if I go to bed at 1, I'm going to wake up at 4 or 5 in the morning, and I'm wide awake.
Right. Yeah, that's tricky because at age 57, it's harder to kind of start, changing the routine.
Right.
But I mean, yeah, the other part of the problem too is you might need to eat some carbs before you go to bed, to be honest. You might even just want to do some like branch chain carbs, like some, have you ever tried amylopectin? What
would that be? What kind of food?
It's just powder, like protein powder, except it's amylopectin powder.
No,
it's called waxy maize.
I haven't, but I've kind of wondered if, and I've been so kind of scared of carbs and sugars the last year, I've really avoided them like the plague. But now I've started, I wear a CGM now, so it's kind of fun.
Exactly.
To watch.
That's cool. I saw that. Yeah. Well, so you the brand you mentioned, remind me.
Oh, I've got the Abbott, so it's the Libre.
Yeah, how much does that cost? Just for people to
right. So I get it at Target Pharmacy. It was like $22 a piece. Not a big deal.
Oh, it's so cheap.
I know it. At Walgreens, which is what our coverage is, so I switched it over to Walgreens. It's like $30 a piece. So it's still pretty inexpensive. So it's worth me doing.
It's not like $3,000 or anything.
No.
And you just wear it on your tricep?
I had it on my arm, on my tricep for the first few months, and I found that it was just kind of aggravating in terms of hitting it on things or getting a sleeve on. So I experimented, and now I actually put it on my back, just above my hip.
Oh wow!
Because there's a little fat there, and it's kind of out of the way, and I don't notice it, and it seems to give the same results.
So tell people basically how you put that thing in.
Yeah, so I just open the box, I pop the thing onto the dispenser, which is like it's almost like a little mouse trap. You press it and it springs in, and it has a kind of a sticky, and it takes about 15 seconds. So literally you just have your spot in mind, you clean it, and you reach back and push firmly, and the thing snaps onto your spot, whether it's your tricep or in my case I use the spot on my back. Anyway, once it's on, it's there for 2 weeks, and I can shower, use the steam room, the hot tub. I haven't had a problem with it falling off. That's awesome. Yeah. Right. And I love being able to see the results all the time.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Generally, you're below 90, I would assume. On keto, you're probably 80-something or 70.
Yeah, and here's what's fascinating. So you hear all this stuff from friends who say things like, oh, if you're going to be on keto, you can drink, clear liquor, clear spirits isn't going to raise your blood sugar. But don't have bourbon or don't have rum, a dark rum, because that's got sugars and stuff. And I believed it when I heard it. Had no reason not to. But with a CGM, you can call bullshit all day long because you can eat something or drink something. And here's the truth of it, and you know this. When you drink alcohol, your blood sugar goes down. So if I have a glass of wine with dinner, and I do like the low sugar wines, the lower alcohol wines, but still, when I have a cocktail, and on keto, I can only have 1 or 2, otherwise I won't feel good. Right. But if I have 1, it's fine, 2 is fine, that's it. But when I have a shot of anything, it gets the same result. my blood sugar will go from 90 or 85, whatever it happens to be before dinner. And after that, after the dinner, my blood sugar, if I have alcohol, could drop to 65 or 70.
Interesting.
And according to the Freestyle Libre, if I drop into the 60s, it's like danger, danger. It says it's red.
Hypo.
But then at night, after a few hours after my meal, and it doesn't spike, but a few hours after my meal, maybe before bed, it'll climb a little bit, maybe up into the 80s or 90s. And then during the night, I get the dawn effect. My highest blood sugar without fail is when I'm fasted in the morning. I might hit 100, 110 sometimes. And I can tell because I'll wake up and I'm just ready to go. I wake up, I'm wide awake, I get out, I do my walk. And then as I'm walking and the day goes on, my blood sugar continues to kind of drop a little bit. Sometimes it'll spike a little from 80 to 90, but yeah, it's always in the green. And when I eat, it goes down. When I eat, my blood sugar goes down because I think my liver says, oh, I can take a break. I don't need to produce the glucose because
fats are coming in.
Yeah, it thinks, well, you're eating food. It doesn't know, but then when the food comes in, there's no glucose, there's no carbs. And so I'm getting the energy I need, but the liver is not making glucose for energy. So it's funny to be able to prove that, to see it conclusively in your own blood.
Yeah, I've heard people talk about alcohol with keto as well, that you can have a few drinks and then you hit this, there's like a threshold that you hit and then boom, you go over the cliff, you know? Like you have 2 drinks, it's fine, and then you have that third and it just shoots you over the cliff, and then the next day you have a major hangover.
It does, yeah. And for me, what it is I've had it a couple of times, literally just a couple, where I had 4 drinks, and it was like, that was on a Friday night out with friends, and I had 4 drinks, real drinks, like at a restaurant, so they were strong. And then it's like, I had too much, I should have known better. And then sure enough, the next day, it's just like the night after a big party. It's just like, you just are sluggish the whole day.
Right. Which is true for pretty much everybody, but particularly with keto, I think there's like a tipping point that you hit, and it just triggers something. But anyways, back to the gut genes, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, I think I would try the carbs first. I would try branch chain glucose, which is amylopectin, which is packaged under waxy maize. Just try it and see. I wouldn't get like a giant tub of it because, it doesn't work. But it's cheap.
So what do you recommend? Like a tablespoon or 2 tablespoons mixed?
Yeah, just a little. Yeah, try different doses. Start small. Honestly, you might even try a full scoop, like a protein powder scoop. Just go crazy with it the first night.
And do you think anything like honey? Would honey, organic honey or blueberries or something like that?
That's worth a try. I mean, the problem with honey is it does have a lot of fructose.
Right.
But yeah, exactly. Maybe blueberries. That's another great idea. I'm thinking out of habit as a scientist, like something that's really controllable. But
right.
Is a great idea. Okay. That's a phenomenal idea.
But you're saying the timing is important, so do it like closer to bedtime. Because I'll have blueberries now, but I'll have them at dinner, like for my dessert.
Yeah, try them 2 hours before you go to bed, or 1 hour or something. Usually that throws off people's sleep, but when you're keto, it usually improves your sleep.
Huh. Okay.
But again, I think the real lever to pull is the staying up later and sleeping in later, which is a lifestyle thing, and that's something you could tinker with. But 45 minutes of deep's not that bad. I always like to see people get above 1 hour, but
well, I feel great, but I always wonder, is it really, am I missing something here? Am I missing some restorative benefit?
Yeah, maybe.
Telomere enhancement, probably. Or muscle, repair.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of regeneration on that deep sleep cycle. Infrared helps too. If you put an infrared light right up on your head, they've done cadaver studies on humans, and it goes 3 inches through your skull. And I've seen phenomenal results. Like almost everybody that does infrared, if they put it right up on their head, like a Juve light for 10 minutes right before they go to bed, and literally right before, not like in the morning, not at noon, but you do that right before you go to bed, you'll see a bump in your deep.
Okay, I'm going to try that because I have 2 Juve lights and a UVB. So
good.
I haven't been doing them the last few weeks because with better weather I get out and get my son. But through the winter I was getting up in the morning and I would go downstairs and do 20, 30 minutes of Juve and 5 minutes of UVB. And
right, cool.
But I have not done it at night, so I'm going to try Juve before bed.
I think you should. There's a friend of mine, Ben Pekulski. He's like a Mr. Olympia contender from back in the day, bodybuilder. And he kind of came across this with his clients. He's got them all using Juve, and they all noticed because they all tracked it. He has them get an Oura ring, and like all of his clients have Oura rings and things. And that was one of the most notable things that jumped out to him is the Juve light really improved their sleep, or the infrared, I should say.
And are you saying just like look down, so it's literally pointing at my crown, or that I should use it like I normally do, where I kind of stand?
I'd put it right up like a baseball hat, like put it right up on your head.
Okay, so don't stare into it like I would in the morning.
Exactly.
Okay, but give it right into the brain. Okay, cool. I'll try that.
Yeah, right up on the brain. Yep. Yep. Closer the better. You can literally just about touch your brain. I mean, you can touch your skull if you want. It doesn't matter to me, but I do it. Like, I'll set it right up on my head.
I'm gonna try it tonight. I'm excited about that.
Yeah, it's a powerful tool. I've seen a lot of people improve. The last gene in the gut section, I mean, you know, it's the DEFB1, just so we don't skip that one. It is a plus plus. It's called beta defensin number 1, and beta defensin is a peptide that your gut secretes to kill bad bacteria in your gut, and you make less of that peptide. Does that make sense?
Sure.
So it's kind of like a, you know, it's like a weed killer. Not literally, it's not a chemical, but it's kind of like a weed killer that wipes out the weeds in your garden but leaves the good plants. And you make less of that weed killer, so then the weeds want to come up. But the diet is key, avoiding sugars, you know, that kind of stuff. So I'm not worried about that, Jim. Did you have any questions on that overall section?
No, but I hadn't looked at it, so this is really, really useful. I mean, this helps to explain. I was kind of worried more about like, the heart issues and all that, but it's really, it's useful to know about the susceptibility to all these gut issues, and to validate what I've been doing is really more important for me than it might be for other people.
Yeah, you do a lot of tinkering. I like that. I do too. It's funny. I mean, I've had people with this gut section be completely empty, like 0 genes in this section. You know, and that's pretty rare. Most people have like at least 2 or 3, I would say.
Yeah.
And maybe even 5 or 6, but to have 10 is really rare, and that's a lot of issues, you know.
Well, and 2 of my kids have more gut issues. I have 4 boys, and I would love to get them, you know, their DNA tests to see what do they get from me, what do they get from, you know, their mom. And I think my wife, I think she'll probably be one that has like 0 to just a few, because there's her and 2 of the boys have 0 gut issues. It's like iron stomachs, you know, they can eat things and no gut issues. So I don't think they've ever emphasized with the gut issues I've always had, and I can empathize with 2 of the boys who have those issues, you know, with the gut aches and sensitivities.
Yep, that happens all the time. I've even done a podcast with a guy named Mike Matthews, and I did his DNA on the air, so it's not confidential or anything. And he has phenomenal gut genes, you know. And of course, he's got really good carb genes as well. So one of his big things is like, you know, people can eat carbs. It's not that big of an issue. Right?
right.
And most people, that's what you find. Most people that have no gut issue genes, they say, oh, you can eat anything. You know, like gluten sensitivity is ridiculous. It's such a joke.
It's like my wife always says, just anything in moderation. Moderation is key.
Yeah, exactly. And that's coming from a person with really good gut genes.
Yes.
Yep. That's funny, and that's one of these things you can't get too judgmental to people when you do this as much as I do, because you see these issues and you see how it really affects some people and it doesn't affect other people at all because they don't have those same issues.
Right.
But then the people that don't have the issues, they get real judgmental sometimes, and you know, it's just not very understanding of the reality. So anyways, vitamin hormone detox. Let's switch to that section.
Okay.
And your vitamin D genes are really, really good. I mean, it doesn't mean you're in Minnesota. I'm glad you're using the vitamin D lamp and everything, it sounds like.
Yes.
And, you know, but it's actually pretty rare to have a clean slate in that section.
Well, that's good to know because traditionally my vitamin D has been low. When I first started testing it, it was in the 20s, and I had been taking a supplement. And now that I quit using sunscreen and started walking every day outside, then my levels have bumped up into the 40s, so they're finally in the green. And that's probably Minnesota and just a total lack of what was supporting D over the years.
Yeah, exactly. And fats are really important to take up vitamin D. So if you're not eating enough fats and you're taking a supplement, it just kind of goes in and out, in one end and out the other. But the other thing is the government used to recommend like 400 IUs a day. And now it's pretty obvious a lot of people need to take 4,000 IUs a day.
Right.
I think 400 barely does anything to bump the needle up. But yeah, I mean, that's good that you've got great genes for at least, managing that. And of course, in Minnesota, it is harder. Like you said, PON1 is the 1++ in this category that lights up first. And it's a seed oil sensitivity gene. So basically, you don't break down seed oils as well as you should, like the canola oils and literally anything that comes from a seed. Soybean oil.
And you want to hear something scary? For several years, I took flax oil as a supplement.
I know a lot of people do. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that's tough on your body, particularly with those estrogens, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's one thing that, before I did research for my book that I wrote, I didn't even know that was such a big issue. But yeah, so seed oils, I'm sure you're avoiding. Olive oil's good. Avocado's good. Coconuts are good. Butter's good. All that stuff is not seed oils. Those are fruits.
Yeah.
Dairy. And then SHBG, I'm not worried, plus minus, but the estrogen genes, you have a few. But what's good about your estrogen genes is you have some yin yang here. You kind of have some offsetting good genes. So you have that ESR1 for higher estrogen, and then you have the next one for that one actually gives you lower estrogen, and then the next one is higher estrogen, and the next one's lower estrogen. So I literally think all bets are off with your estrogen, but it's probably really good. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And your testosterone. I mean, what's your T?
Well, I'll be honest. I'm on a T supplement right now or T replacement.
Good.
Because it was about a 300, 350, but I just didn't feel, I wish I would have started
300 is low, yeah.
And so now it's all super solid, but I did it concurrent with going keto. So I went keto, in January.
Keto will bump it up most of the time.
I know. So, but I'm afraid to stop now because it's like I feel like I've got a good formula going, and unless somebody convinces me that there may be a health detriment to doing it, which I don't think there is,
right,
then it's affordable. So
yeah, no, I think the sauna would be really beneficial. Because one of these estrogen genes is related to how your liver detoxes artificial estrogen, CYP1B1, that particular one.
Okay.
CYP, anytime you see that, it basically means a liver enzyme that helps you break chemicals down, detox, and a detox enzyme. But yeah, I think, like you said, having a healthy gut, having ketones, a lot of fats, a lot of cholesterol, that stuff all helps your testosterone bump up. You're probably fine without the T. I mean, if you want to bump it up, if it's still not up enough, when you check it the next time, I wouldn't even be afraid to get on some T cream, testosterone optimization cream.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you've got pretty good genes there.
Okay, good to know.
The thyroid, all of those are plus minus, thankfully. But I would still take iodine. I think that's the take home from that section.
Okay, and so I do have iodine, and I've gone in phases with it, so I can't say that I'm taking it every day like a multivitamin, but I...
Yeah, I wouldn't either. I mean, you don't have to, but you could take it every couple days or every 3 days or so, and your body stores it up.
Okay.
But it is important to get, just to make sure your thyroid hormones are optimized.
All right.
And then, like I say, you got some plus minuses throughout here that I don't want to spend too much time on. I mean, you can look at the paragraphs, Homocysteine comes up again in the B9 section, and that's the second time we've seen that. If you scroll down to the next page or two, you see B9, aka folate.
Yep.
Your genes are pretty good there, but homocysteine comes up twice. You see MTRR, and then the gene below that, CBS.
And do you think, even though I have super low inflammatory markers with the C reactive protein and insulin and all that, that homocysteine is still something that I should be looking at independent of those other inflammatory markers?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. It's a completely separate pathway. And especially when you have these genes, right? Like that MTRR, I always like to say the name of the gene just because it's so obnoxious. Scientists give these genes goofy names sometimes. They just keep tacking on more letters. So MTRR, that stands for methyl tetrahydrofolate homocysteine methyltransferase reductase.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can see they just keep tacking. It's like first it's methyl, and then it's tetra, and then it's hydrofolate, and it's homocysteine. They just keep adding words. But the the homocysteine is key. Just keep checking that. And do you take some kind of folate or folic acid or something?
To be honest, I don't remember if that's in my, I think it might be in my mix. I do test for my vitamin B12, and it is very solid.
It's probably
so my
good.
level was like, the last one was like 703.
Right. And you're not supplementing B12, right?
You know, I think there is a B vitamin in my mix because I do take a mix.
Well, you're taking niacin.
I do take niacin, 500 milligrams a day. Or 500 of whatever unit it is.
Yeah, milligrams, yep.
And I definitely get the flush.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's B3. Niacin is also called B3. But that's the only B vitamin I noticed on your list that you sent me.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, if it's high, if homocysteine is high, like I mentioned before, serine and then folate. Between those two, you should be fine.
Okay.
It's just worth checking. I mean, the reason I'm asking about B12 as well is because that's the next gene, and you have some genes that indicate your B12 uptake is pretty minimal, but you're eating a lot of meat. So you're just not built for vegan, just no way around it.
Right. Well, and it's so funny that I tried it and I really evangelized it. I mean, I lost a lot of weight. I thought it was the way to go. I read a couple of good books on it, and it really lowered my triglyceride and LDL cholesterol, which I thought at the time was such a important thing to do, but I still felt like crap. I couldn't get around the fact that I still felt kind of crummy.
Yeah. Also, B12, I mean, keep eating meat, it's that simple. And if you have to supplement B12, it's cheap. Heavy metals, you're not too bad. Just that CBS++ indicates that you don't clear arsenic as well. You have about 25% more monomethyl arsenic acid, it's called, with that gene generally, in studies at least, if you're representative. And so, just be careful with arsenic-containing foods like Brussels sprouts and things.
Okay.
For most people, that's such a tiny amount, it's no big deal. But if you're eating them all the time, I know you're on keto, so you might be eating them all the time.
Well, here's the thing. I actually love Brussels sprouts. It's one of the great veggies when we eat at a restaurant.
Funny.
To get caramelized Brussels sprouts with bacon and all. However, I can only eat a small quantity because I'm super reactive. My gut is super reactive to Brussels sprouts.
Sure. Oh, there you go. Yeah, this might be a factor too, but I would say keep getting them. Just do it once in a while. Give your body some time to clear the arsenic. And some of these other foods that are listed on here, like just doesn't mean you can't have any of this stuff. Just be aware of it. Space it out.
So you're saying
tuna,
avoid. So I understand about the swordfish and big tuna and all that, but even salmon and sardines.
Yeah, sometimes they have arsenic. It depends. And the ultimate thing is just to get tested for it.
Right.
If you're worried, because in keto, you might be having that stuff all the time, and it might be an issue. You don't want something that crops up 5 years down the road.
Right.
And
so in particular,
look into it more.
So in particular, do you think mackerel? Like I've kind of switched from sardines to mackerel, just like them better. Is that less of an issue, or are they kind of the same?
I'm not sure. Well, I'm not sure. Yeah, I think it all depends on which part of the ocean they get them from or which ocean they derive. But honestly, don't know. I'm not really a big arsenic expert. I'm just pulling the info off of other websites and stuff, or scientific research there. The gene is not common enough for me to be that much of an expert, to be honest.
And how do you have a sense of how often a person should do that test in terms of heavy metal test with hair?
Well, so if you're consistent with your diet and stuff, I would just do it once, and then if you're good, I wouldn't worry about it. But if you did a dramatic change in your diet, like say you went back to vegan or something, after a year of doing that, you definitely want to check again.
Okay.
But yeah, I think your level will stay pretty consistent,
And I suppose if you got tested and it's high, obviously then that's your baseline. So you'd want to make an improvement and then test against whether or not that's working.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. That's a test I haven't done, and I'm definitely going to do.
Yeah, with the plus there, it's worth doing, especially with your unusual diet. I think it's an awesome diet, but you might find there's some foods that have arsenic. It's worth checking it. It's better that you're an expert in it than me.
Right, for sure, yeah.
There's so many genes, I can't be an expert on everything, unfortunately. And then the last gene on this section, PNPLA3, it's a twofold higher risk of fatty liver. basically if you're eating a lot of fructose. It's one of these fructose sensitive genes. So the real killer here is soda, of course.
Right.
You know, because your liver just wants to store all the fructose as fat instead of burning it as energy. So, and even some fruits. You know, I have a list there that I link to on my website with fruits that are high in fructose, because not all of them are high in fructose.
Right.
Like figs, for example, are super high in fructose, you know, so be careful with those kind of things. And you're keto.
Yeah, the only fruits I eat nowadays are blueberries, blackberries, you know, strawberries,
Perfect.
raspberries, and they're all organic.
Berries. Yeah.
Berries.
Yeah, good. Yeah, pretty much the same. Good. Did you have any questions on the detox section?
No, but I'm glad to have gone over it, because it's one of those topics I've thought about intermittently but never acted on, and I'm going to definitely act on that and get the heavy metal test.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and check that homocysteine, which
Right.
that's the second time it's
I'm
coming.
going to add that up.
Yeah, and then the gym, we mentioned the muscle fiber stuff. You have that dopamine DR4 receptor that usually makes you more of a novelty seeker for working out. Like basically you don't want to do the same routine over and over and over, which it sounds like you kind of do.
Well, I have a routine, but that's because time is so valuable to me. I do a routine that's super compressed, very efficient.
Yeah, and I think that's a plus minus. So, you know, you might be able to just do the same routine over and over and keep getting good response from it. But, you know, a lot of people with the plus in that gene, they have to change it up a lot in their workout. They have to do like dumbbell rows and then bent over rows and then barbell rows, you know, bent over rows, or rowing machine or whatever, just switching the same movement pattern up.
Well, and what's your thought, you know, at some point, you know, when you go from your young self and you're building and you're wanting to build muscle and you're wanting to build a physique, you're wanting to get to a particular pinnacle of health and wellness, versus when you're on the other side of the slope. You know, I'm 57 and I'm not ready to die, but I'm at the point where I'm thinking realistically, I'm not necessarily looking to be building any muscle. I just don't want to lose my muscle, and I think I want to maintain what I have as long as I can with as little effort as possible. And I feel like keto is certainly helping that, and the walking and the pull-ups and push-ups and body weight exercises. So far, I'm kind of watching carefully. I don't want to wake up one day and be like, oh my God, my body just became this flaccid mess.
Yeah, no. Well, no, I think that's all a perfectly good goal, you know. I mean, the thing is like like I said, if your testosterone is 300, that's going to make that a massive challenge, maybe even impossible.
Well, and now with T replacement, it's a consistent, you know, 900, let's say. It's
exactly. Oh, okay, so you're actually doing like a cream or something?
No. I do the injection. So I do a weekly injection, and it's monitored.
Oh, okay, good.
And
I missed that.
Yeah, so like I say, I'm afraid to stop it, because I'm like, well, I started it at the same time as keto, and so it's hard. It's hard to say how much of the benefit has been ketosis.
Oh, I thought you meant.
Healthy living.
I was looking. I see. I was looking at like your GNC supplement and thinking for some reason you were taking like a testosterone booster.
No. So it's actually
like just a mix of. Okay, I got you. I misunderstood before. So no, that's good. So that Again, I think your goals are perfectly good. I don't think you have to put on muscle mass, and you know, even if you're 30 years old, I think you can have that goal.
Right.
You can if you want. You know, with that testosterone up at a decent level. And by the way, I'm a bigger fan of cream, but still a fan of injections if you want to.
And why is that? Why do you like cream over
like
injection?
When I have a prescription for it, although I only use it if I'm injured. But I mean, my levels naturally are at like 650 generally. But I like when I do get on it, like I throw my back or something. The nice thing about the cream is you can maintain a nice high level really consistently. So like I do it in the morning and in the evening.
Okay.
You know, every day. Whereas the injection, it's once a week, right? So you shoot way up and then you shoot way down and then you shoot way up. You know what I mean? You can probably feel it, right?
Well, that's the interesting thing, because I don't. You know, you go in and they ask you all the questions about mood and everything. And so what I can say is that it's like caffeine. I can tell if I've had 4 cups of coffee, but I don't feel dysfunctional. I don't feel jittery. And so same thing with the testosterone replacement. I've always been a real stable person in terms of personality and logical thinker and mood and all. But what I can say is it happened, again, maybe coincidentally with going keto, And so I was already feeling really good. So when I came in each week and they said, how are you feeling? Give you the questionnaire. I'd say, oh, I feel fantastic. Best ever. So I don't know if it's the testosterone or if it's the ketosis or both. And I have read a few articles where they've said, oh, this is the perfect mix. Doing keto and T replacement as you're an aging male gives you a real secret weapon toward longevity and energy and muscle retention and just, you know.
Exactly.
So I kind of
even muscle mass. If you want to put on muscle mass, you still have that option at least.
Right.
Yeah, I'm a fan. I mean, it's restorative too. It helps your joints heal faster, all kinds of stuff. So.
Yeah, and how much of my joint pain has gone away because of that, or how much of my inflammation
probably
has gone down? Yeah, probably some. Yeah.
Definitely some. Yeah, because you like speaking of joints, we're on the joint section, and you see the first gene. The only plus there is IL-2, interleukin 2. And that gene, ironically enough, is responsive to testosterone. You decrease interleukins with testosterone.
Okay.
So basically, you decrease that form of inflammation with testosterone. And the next one is a plus minus for another interleukin. That's interleukin 1 beta. So both of those you're already improving with testosterone. So I'm actually a fan.
Okay.
I didn't I misunderstood you the first time. I was thinking you were boosting, and boosting is fine too with some supplements, but injection screams a lot better. So I'm glad you're doing that. And then the carbs come up again for your joints. The iodine comes up again. It's interesting though, under that iodine section with the pluses there.
Yep.
I mean, you have two genes that basically give you a risk for osteoarthritis. Do you know the difference between rheumatoid and osteo?
I do not.
So rheumatoid arthritis is when your immune system chews up your joints, right, which is bad. Osteoarthritis is when your soft tissue just kind of erodes over time, just kind of slowly degrades, and then you get bones rubbing on bones.
Okay.
So your immune system didn't chew it up; it just kind of slowly just kind of dissolved away, you know.
Right.
And you're more at risk for osteo with that particular DIO2 gene. It's called deiodinase. It's completely dependent on your thyroid hormone. So that's another reason to keep your thyroid hormones optimized. And I'm not worried about it because your genes are pretty good in that section. You didn't have any pluses at least in the thyroid section, but again, take iodine,
Okay.
And probably check them, like keep it on as every 5 years to check them, something like that. Maybe even every year if you really want to check. But it's exactly like you were talking about the heavy metals. It's like if they're good, it's kind of put on the back burner, but if they're low or something, then really be active about it and checking them. Because the thyroid hormones decline with age. Everybody's do.
Right, and I do check my thyroid. That's part of my keto panel that I do every 3 to 4 months. And so right now my T3, T4, TSHs are all super good, super green.
Great. That's not surprising with your good genes there. But just and you're eating seafood. So to be honest, I know I keep saying supplement iodine is important. If you keep eating seafood, you're doing it. Okay. That's basically supplementing iodine.
Okay, good. I hadn't thought about that, so that's good to know.
Yeah, well, most people don't eat seafood more, they don't even have it once a week, So then I get in the habit of just saying like, oh, you got to get on the iodine. But for you, you're having it probably every couple of days.
Right. Sometimes I'm actually a little worried that maybe I'm having too much cod liver and maybe my blood will get too thin, and I don't want to have an Atkins type of an accident where I fall and hit my head and I bleed out internally because I've had so much omega-3 that I'm thin-blooded.
Right. Do you notice anything if you get a cut?
No, but I will tell you, when I check my blood every day for ketones, and I do one glucose test a day just with blood, just to corroborate what I'm seeing on my CGM. And when I poke my finger, that blood just pops out, like a little geyser, and it's instant. When I do a finger on one of my boys, just occasionally they'll want to know their level. I have to work to get a little drop of blood out of their finger.
Right. That's most people. Yeah. I mean, that's an indicator. Like if you pick a scab or something, it just doesn't stop bleeding, then you're going too far for sure.
Right, and I don't have that problem. I mean, when I prick my finger, the blood comes out super easy. I get a nice big droplet. I can do little blood samples with other types of blood tests too, and I never have a problem squeezing enough drops out to get the job done. But then as soon as I'm done, I'll wipe it with a Kleenex, and it does not keep bleeding.
That's good to go. Yep, that's good. Yeah, no, so you're getting your iodine. That's awesome. I think you're super on top of it. And the blood flow is really important. I mean, you're doing everything right. Exercise, right? How do you get blood flow in and out of your joints? You exercise and move.
Yep.
You're going for walks. You're doing all that stuff. So I'm super relaxed on that section. I don't think there's any concern. And the gout is the same thing. That's a fructose transporter. SLC2A9.
Okay.
It gives you a risk of, if your blood fructose is really high, it'll transport a bunch of uric acid into your joints, and that causes gout. Not worried about it,
All right.
because you're not eating fructose. And the low back, like these back disc genes, again, they're plus minus, but with that IL-1A, that's another interleukin gene. That one I see pretty commonly. People with that gene have low back issues. Do you ever have like low back stuff?
Well, there have been a few times, when I've tweaked it, and so I don't know if that is related or not, but I have had a few times where I've thought, how in the hell did I hurt my lower back? Because I didn't do anything that should have pulled it. Didn't lift heavy weights, didn't overdo it.
Right. Yeah, it's always something embarrassing, It's like you're picking up around your house, like picking up a piece of paper or something.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, no, testosterone. I mean, testosterone really, really helps that interleukin gene. Blood pressure, I'm not worried about. I mean, you have a gene, but that's a pretty common gene. About 30 to 50% of people have that gene. And usually if your body weight's good, your blood pressure's good, and your diet's good. So you're probably good there, right?
Yeah, my blood pressure has been pretty good.
Yeah, and if worst case scenario, if you need to get on like an angiotensin type drug, because this is an angiotensin gene, then I wouldn't be afraid of it if you really need it. But yeah, usually it's just diet, lifestyle, exercise. And then finally, in this gym section, the last gene is your insulin IGF-1 receptor. That's just a gene that's associated with lower levels of IGF-1, so it's harder to put on like a lot of muscle mass if you're a bodybuilder or something. It doesn't mean anything if you're not worried about that.
Right. So
it doesn't sound like you are. So.
Right. So I'm like 6'1", 190, and hovering, like I say, DEXA says 12%. Withing says 8-9%. So muscle mass feels pretty good, and I'm not working out hard. So I feel like if I did work out with a lot of weights, I could probably put some muscle on.
Put it on, right? Yeah, especially because you're taking zinc and stuff. You got a lot of zinc going on, and that increases IGF. So that kind of fixes this problem the natural way.
Right.
And then the sleep genes. Let's just jump down there because you only have a couple genes there, and that first one. PER3, that particular version is usually a late riser gene, and it's pretty rare. But again, we already talked about it. It's a plus minus, so you can kind of, it may or may not have that much of an impact. I think it probably does, but it's hard to say without tinkering. And if you can't wake up,
right.
Then who knows? But sometimes you can trick your body into thinking that you're staying up super late, wearing blue blockers and stuff earlier. Like
right.
Putting the blue blockers on at like 3 p.m. and tricking your brain into thinking it's late. So you're going to bed at 10 at night, but your body thinks it's 2 in the morning.
it would probably make the family happier if I just pushed it to stay up late again.
Yeah.
Stayed up later.
That'd be worth it. I mean, since you got the aura and you like tinkering so much, it might be worth it. But
right. I think I will.
That's a funny problem to have. But yeah, and then the WWC1 gene is, it's pretty common in most nationalities. Some nationalities, only 1% of people have this gene, and in other nationalities, like 50% of people. But it basically indicates you have about 25% less memory recall if you get poor sleep. So it doesn't mean you're going to get poor sleep. It just means if you do, it's pretty bad for your memory recall, or your cognitive performance. So it's certainly focus on getting good sleep. The Oura ring is the key, tracking your sleep. It is trickier with keto, I mean, that's one of the reasons I cycle keto. I don't do keto all the time because if I do it all the time, I lose my sleep cycles. But I'm a terrible sleeper.
Well, I would have said I was too. I would have said I'm a light sleeper.
Well, I did. Like in college, my senior year, I did 3 hours of sleep every night for the whole year.
Well, and that's how
it's pretty hard to compete with that amount.
No, I wasn't that low, but I've had my own business for many years, and I would say for almost the entire decade of the 90s, I stayed up till 1 to 3 in the morning every night, got up 6, 7 in the morning, and started over again.
Right.
So it was years and years where I would joke, and people would say, "Oh, how do you get by on so little sleep?" And I would joke and say, "Well, you can sleep when you're dead." And I just
Yep.
thought it was, I was very
Ambition.
prideful about how much I could get done in so little sleep. And now I kick myself because I think, no, you really need the sleep, whether you think you do or not.
Right. Yeah, especially with some of that creativity and some of that stuff. But yeah, I mean, that's interesting. And you know, this is one of those things that tracking it is by far the best way to improve it.
Right.
In blue light, again, I'm not super worried because you have plus minus there. So overall, you have great genes in the sleep section. And overall, in the even bigger picture, I think you have pretty good genes in general, the way you're living, you know. So I'm pretty impressed that you've got so many things dialed in.
Well, I'm impressed how lucky. I feel a little bit like a blind pig finding a couple ears of corn because I did not get into keto and intermittent fasting and Juve lights with the idea of some of the things that we've covered in this genetic report.
Right.
But it's just I feel fortunate that I got a late start on one hand, not doing it until I was 56. But in a sense, an early start because I didn't wait until this report tonight to get started with this.
Right. Well, I appreciate you doing the DNA report, and of course, like I said before, going to my talk. I mean, did you have any overarching questions or anything? Not at this time. This is a lot of stuff. So this is a good, solid, 90 minutes of chat. I appreciate it. I like the analysis. I'm going to go back. I mean, tonight I'm going to do Juve and before bed. I'm going to try a little bit of the carb before bed. I've got a few things to try, a couple of tests. Yeah, separate them out. Yeah, don't try them at the same time. Right. Separate them. Right. I'm going to do just Juve tonight. I'm going to do Juve for a week at night. And then I'm going to add the heavy metal test, and I'm going to add the homocysteine to my next lab test, which I'm going to try to get in the next couple of weeks. So I'll just pop that onto the existing order. Perfect. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And I just love actually being a student of this whole health and wellness, too, because I love the liberated feeling you get knowing you're not a victim necessarily to what happened to your dad or what happened to your grandpa or any other relatives in your genetic tree. Yeah, and that's the way people still think about it. Like a lot of the doctors still think about it that way. Like even though they're taught, this is the specific mechanism of how this gene is problematic, and here's how you can change it. Yeah. Or they should be taught that, right? Like that's just a fundamental way of understanding biology. Right. But they still kind of approach it like, you just have bad genes. Let's do the knee surgery. Well, in one hand, I can be a little bit sensitive to the fact that even a doctor who's a super smart person who's gone through a lot of education and a dedicated, life dedicated to helping people, they're human and they can't. I mean, this is a lot of material. Yeah. And you've only covered a tiny fraction of the overall gene. So I'm trusting that you and your expertise have teased out some of the most important genes in terms of what can be impactful to me, having a health span that I can really appreciate in improving on that. Exactly. And so I wish doctors would take your, with this genetic information, I wish they would take that more into consideration, but I guess people need to self-advocate first, bring this to their physicians and just start pushing it along with their self-discovery and nutrition. Because if I mention it to my doctor that I'm keto, he just rolls his eyes. What does he know? He doesn't really think that's even a good thing. Yeah. No, I appreciate that. And a lot of doctors do. I have partners that are doctors in DNA consulting, and they have a lot of their patients do DNA consulting and things like that. So it just depends on the doctor, But yeah, I really appreciate you doing the podcast version for everybody, and I'm glad you're in that group in the Twin Cities. You guys are all such a great group up there. Yeah, well, I appreciate you letting me do it and giving me the consult, and I look forward to any future discussions, presentations that you give. I love getting out and learning more. It's fun to learn something new every day. Yeah, thanks, Dan. Have a good evening. You too. Thanks. Bye-bye. All right. Yeah, bye.